Hi, my name's Fred Mowry. I'm a volunteer at Neighborhood Pets, and this little video and training deck is how to deal with conflict. I'm also a student at Tri-C in their Conflict Resolution and Peace Studies program, and as a capstone project, I reached out to Neighborhood Pets and asked if I could put something like this together. So this is meant to be a way for you, if you do see something like a conflict going on at Neighborhood Pets, how to kind of dial things back a little bit, and I hope it's useful to you. So we'll go ahead and get started. So today what we're going to look at are the basic definitions and characteristics of conflict. We do see these every day, but maybe we don't really see kind of like the definitions of those. Some of the kinds of conflicts that we come across at Neighborhood Pets, and then ways to address that conflict. So part one, the basics of conflict. A pure definition of interpersonal conflict is an expressed struggle between at least two interdependent parties who perceive incompatible goals, scarce resources, and interference from others in retrieving those goals. We all need each other, we're all stuck with each other, and sometimes we fight over things. Conflict is inevitable. It always happens. I had to do a conflict log as part of this class, and one of the things I found was that I'm in a lot more conflicts than I realized. They come in all shapes and sizes and intensities. The reason why? Usually there's a basic need or a sense of identity, values, or interests that are at the root. So in this case, my need could be my need to not get hit by a car. I have values like I have certain beliefs in this world. So anytime that those things are threatened, I can be drawn into a conflict. For our clients who come into Neighborhood Pets, all of the above usually are initially unknown to us, except for the basic needs, which is, can you help my pets? But as time goes on, we tend to find out a little bit more about identity, values, and interests. And that's important because relationships are very important to what we do at Neighborhood Pets. We learn more about people and their situations, and we learn better ways to help them. So all good stuff to know. So how do conflicts get kicked off? Seems like it's pretty much no-brainer, but there actually is a cycle of conflict. So a cycle of conflict is we all have worldviews and beliefs. These are all sorts of things that are listed here, like my experiences, the people in my life, perception, the self-image, culture, rational beliefs, belief system, unmet needs. I'm hungry. That could be an unmet need. Then there's a stress. The stress can be good or it can be bad. And then I have an emotional response. I can't control this response. Going back to the food thing, I'm hungry. I go all day without eating food. That's my stress. My emotional response is I get angry. And this is the part I can't control. I have a behavior, or I might misbehave. Response comes from the other person that re-influences my worldview or beliefs, and we go back around again and again and again. So we are in a cycle of conflict. Now, it just doesn't go around in circles over and over and over again. In reality, we're on what is commonly referred to as a conflict escalator. So what does that mean? Like any other escalator, you go up and you go down. The higher up you go on a conflict escalator, though, the worse off things are getting. So we're talking about major damage being done potentially to the relationship. It could get physical. It can get heated in a hurry. Every time we go back around over and over again, the stress builds. I have a bad reaction. The person that I'm dealing with has a worse reaction. It makes me madder. Stress gets bigger and up and up and up, and we go until we hit the pinnacle and then everything falls apart. We clearly don't want to go there. So now that we've talked about the types of conflict, or the basics of conflict, what are the types of conflict that we see at Neighborhood Pets? So I actually interviewed the staff, and I came up with these three basic common conflicts. I'm sure there are far more, but these are the ones that seem to happen the most. Clients have a conflict with the staff and the volunteers. This seems pretty much like a no-brainer. So we are at cross ends, and we get into it, potentially. Clients can conflict with each other. This actually happens in the waiting area or at the front of the store, or sometimes at events. You know, sometimes those clients have a history. They have worldviews of their own, and that can lead to conflicts. The third kind of conflict is actually more of like a feeder into the other two, and that is we have clients sometimes that come into the store that might be under the influence. It's a special case, but they're kind of not really in their right mind because they're under the influence of a substance of some sort. In this case, it could lead to a conflict with us, other volunteers, or with other clients. But in any case, it's something to keep in mind. So this is the good part. What do we do? So a conflict, remember they're inevitable. They happen. We want to get off the conflict escalator. We don't want things to keep getting worse and worse and worse. So there are lots of ways that we can deal with these things. Some simple techniques that I'm going to present here. But I want to start with learning a little bit about ourselves. So it's kind of like knowing how you might react in certain situations. There's something called the dual concern model. And what this means is that in any conflict, we have two concerns typically. One for ourselves, our personal needs, well-being, everything else. And then the other concern is for the relationship with the other person. So in some cases, I'm going to value one or the other more than the other. So I might value myself more in a situation, say like a car accident with a complete stranger. At that case, I don't care so much about the relationship I have with that person as I do about my personal well-being or that of my family. In other circumstances, the relationship is very, very important, and we may not care about ourselves so much because that relationship is more important to us. So based off of that, the dual concern model, there are 5 variations of it, and we'll quickly go over them. The first one is competing. So in this case, we have a high degree of concern for ourselves, but not so much for the relationship. And one thing that came up in the studies is that they say it's mostly because there's a matter of law, ethics, safety, or rules in play here. It's important in this situation that others expect us to compete. The other will be competitive and the stakes are high. So I don't really see this a lot in neighborhood pets, but it's just something to keep in mind. The next model is avoiding or withdrawing, and this is something that I personally do quite a bit. This is when the issue is trivial to me and there is no long-term relationship. So in this case, thinking about it this way, like I'm walking down the street and I bump into somebody and they start yelling and screaming at me. I avoid like crazy. And the reason why is because no long-term relationship and I'm mostly concerned about myself. Collaborating. So this is kind of the holy grail. This is where we're going to work together. We both have high concern for ourselves, but also for the relationship. We want to, with the other person, win together. This is what we really want at Neighborhood Pets, and this is what we do actually see happening at Neighborhood Pets every day in and day out. It's very cool that this happens. This is where it's complex issues. We have to be creative. We have a long-term relationship with the client, and we absolutely need to keep that relationship strong, so we're going to work together to try to solve the issue. When time is short, you usually are forced into a compromise situation. And then finally, accommodating is the issue is trivial to ourselves, but the relationship is important. So this is the case where we can't solve the problem right away, but we have to kind of give in to make things happen. So this is, again, just kind of know, like, maybe in certain circumstances you might be more willing to collaborate, and others you might be willing to accommodate. And some of you are forced to compromise. You may find yourself competing, and you might find yourself avoiding. So just, again, know yourself. All right, let's talk about the techniques. Technique number 1, and this is really important. Remember again where our clients are coming from and their pets in this specific situation. Remember that conflict escalator and the conflict cycle. They're coming because they have an unmet need. Their identity might be threatened. It's hard to say. In this case, they're here for help. That's when those things are threatened, the stressors kick in, and that starts everything off. Also remember too, our own stressors can kick off a client and start off a conflict. We just have to remember that we're here to help and to keep all that in mind. So technique number 2, no nonverbal cues. We can say things, but in reality people are watching us. So non-threatening nonverbal cues are things like keeping your distance, smiling, bowing your head, not looking down over your nose. Gaze avoidance. So this is where we try not to stare everyone down. We can definitely establish eye contact when we're talking with somebody, but somebody might take that deep stare as something like a threatening posture. And then speak with a non-threatening tone of voice. In this case, they say soft, but speak with a way that is indicating that you're not irritated. The converse of this are the threatening nonverbal cues. Staring and glaring, invading the personal space, touching, pointing, raising your voice, laughing at them, turning away, puffing up, which I'm guilty of doing quite a bit, mocking, patronizing, interrupting, shaking your heads, rolling your eyes, sighing, exasperation. These things are going to be perceived as negative things. They're going to increase the stress level, kick off the conflict cycle, take us up to the next level. By doing the non-threatening ones, it helps dial things back a bit. The third technique is active listening. So we were talking about communication and how important this is. It's very, very important that we show our clients or our conflict partners that we are listening. If we're dealing with two clients that are arguing or fighting with each other, it's important that they know that we're listening to them both. What does that mean? You're demonstrating to them via active listening that you're hearing them, number one, and two, you're understanding what they're saying. So there's three ways that you do this. One, you attend. So you're listening with your whole body. You're facing them. You're not acting distracted. Two, you're following. What does this mean? It means that you're actually understanding how they see their situation. You're not saying, "Oh, I get what you're saying," or you say with them, you must feel terrible," or something like that. What you're really saying is you're really understanding that they're frustrated, or they're sad, or they're happy. The way you do that, and you show them, is that you reflect, you mirror to the speaker. So in this case, for an example, a client can come in and can say, "I need food for my dog because we're all out. And I'm having the worst day because we're having some family problem." By listening to, you don't want to sit there, you don't have to sit and listen to like a 3-hour long story or something like that. But in this case, what you definitely are looking at them, and if they're highly agitated, you can say, you look like you're, like things, you seem, you need, how do I say this? You say to them, you basically repeat what they're saying, but you can even throw in something like, "You're frustrated because you need food for your dog and there's a problem with your family." So that would be a very accurate reflection of what they're saying. The fourth technique is an important one because it means that you're willing to be assertive. So in this case, sometimes our conflict partner, our client, may not, or two clients, may not be willing to dial it up. They're ready to go up and up and up the escalator because, those emotions get strong. Maybe we can't help, maybe we can't make an accommodation, but we still need to get off that conflict escalator. So, in the case that we need to assert ourselves, we use the 3-part assertion formula. It basically goes like this. When you, A, which is a description of the offending behavior, I feel, B, which is a description of the feelings and the effect on myself, and then C, because of C, which is the description of the effect on me. So, when you, A, I feel B because of C. So, an example would be this. Maybe somebody comes in and they're very agitated and they're having a really bad day and they start yelling. Obviously, that's going to push us up the conflict escalator. So, how do we stop it? We use the 3-part assertion formula. I can say to them, "When you yell at me, I feel uncomfortable because I'm just worried that things are just getting very tense in here right now." So again, you can use that, and it actually states where you are, but without moving us up the conflict escalator. So again, using that 3-part assertion, when you're describing the behavior, be specific. When you're disclosing your feelings, choose the right feeling. Don't make something up. And then describe the tangible effects of what's happening because of it. It will help. So finally, to wrap it up, just to remember, conflict is inevitable. Cued by our worldviews and stress, we want to get off that escalator. Have an idea of what you're like in those conflicts. Remember what the clients are here for. Be an active listener. Be careful with your nonverbal cues, and don't hesitate to be assertive. And remember, take care of each other. Don't be afraid to back each other up. Thank you, and hope you have a good one.